Hey folks, Rob Daniels here from Visions in Sound on visionsinsound.ca as well as 98.5 CKWR, 12 to 2 a.m. every Saturday morning. Here we are, week 4. See, right here, week 4, coming up on the screen. In any case, glad to be here, glad you're here, glad that I'm finally able to talk to you about probably one of my favorite soundtracks of all time, and that's Vangelis' 1492 Conquest of Paradise. What a soundtrack. There are people out there, and I'm sure there are going to be people out there that ask me the question, is it Vangelis, all this thing? I have it on good authority. I've heard it said many, many times on various interviews. It is Vangelis with the hard G. It's probably one of the biggest questions I've ever gotten in the years that I've done my show. So here we are. Vangelis' 1492 Conquest of Paradise. Favorite album of all time. Favorite soundtrack of all time. Now there are people out there that will also say that this was a studio album. And the fact that the studio album was a concept before it was a soundtrack. I honestly believe that Vangelis was hired by Ridley Scott to do the film, and it just so happened that the way Vangelis works, the man did not read music, and I don't believe wrote a note. He was very improvisational, so it comes out in a lot of his works. This comes through specifically in the fact that the main title, and I'm trying to remember, Conquest of Paradise. The main what is generally the first major piece of music on the album doesn't show up until almost halfway through the film. It's a pivotal moment, but it shows up halfway through the film. Now, for me, this went from an average album to my favorite in a very short period of time. 1992, I'm taking an afternoon nap on the couch in the basement. And I'm lying there and I'm listening to 1492. And I start hearing Conquest of Paradise. And I'm listening, and eyes are closed, I'm listening, and suddenly I just bolt up and I go, holy crap, did I hear what I thought I heard? So I had to go back and I had to re-listen to it. Now, I'd been sailing on several times over the years, once when I was in high school, and more recently with a former colleague. So I really liked the water. I was very much into the whole water thing. So I'm listening to this, and there's a point in the score, especially kind of near about midway through that Conquest of Paradise theme, where the music goes boom, 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 and it doesn't have that percussive quality that I just did. It has more of a splash kind of sound, and that's what made me bolt up and say, holy crap, this is what I heard. It sounds like the sound when you hear the bow of a boat come up and hit the water and splash. And I was like, in that brief moment, Vangelis captured the feeling of how it was to be on a sailing ship. And considering that this was the story of Columbus's discovery of America, that's pretty cool, especially at the beginning. And like I said, unfortunately, that piece of music doesn't get heard until about midway through the film, but it's still hugely influential when it came to listening to this. I do have to admit, though, that the score itself, the rest of the score, it's not just Conquest of Paradise that grabs me. It was the coolest moment. But there are other great moments in this. I mean, there are a lot of repeats, but a lot of choral music. I'm thinking of the likes of Light and Shadow, Deliverance, West Across the Ocean Sea. All of this, and I think it goes back to what Vangelis captured in Blade Runner, and that's vibe. And I think for me, what makes this particular soundtrack resonate is how timeless it is. In that you could listen to it today and it still feels as if it was, well, at the time when they released 1492, it was 1992, which was the 500th anniversary of Columbus's discovering of America, or at least the discovery of the Americas. So for me, this was huge. Listening to this, the only thing I'm not a huge fan of is there is a kind of a something that sounds like somebody's squeezing a squeaky toy and goes, eh. But that's about the only thing that bothers me in the entire score. It is a beautifully constructed, fantastic, and if you've ever felt like being an explorer or being on the open waves, I remember being on the Chichiman at Tobermory in Tobermory, Ontario, Canada, and feeling that same feeling as you're going across the water. It wasn't the bow coming up and hitting the water, but there was just that feeling of motion, that feeling of it was so cool. And that, for me, the timelessness and the way the music is constructed, I don't care how it appears on the album, although it would be nice to get a release that presents the music in that form. Unfortunately, I don't know if we're ever going to get it because of Vangelis' death a couple of years ago. I hope we do. I hope somebody steps in and puts this in film order. In any case, doesn't matter. 1492, my absolute favorite score of all time. One of many, but the one that sticks out, at least in week 4 of 52 scores, 52 weeks. So my show, Visions in Sound, is on 12 to 2 a.m. every Saturday morning on 98.5 CKWR. I can be found on visionsinsound.ca. I'm on the Twitter at visionssound. Can also be found on Good Pods, a downloadable app for your phone or other type devices. And I can also be found on many of the other podcatchers out there, including Apple Music. So I thank you for listening today. Heading into week 5. Like, share, and subscribe. Folks, get the word out there. 25 years of my show. That's no small feat, at least in my eyes. Have fun. Get out there. Listen to unusual soundtracks. 'Cause I've got stuff coming up. It's going to be really cool. In any case, happy listening. We'll see you next week.